Okay, so welcome back to part two, where I explain how I did the preview because I didn't explain that yet. I didn't get to it yet. It's such a long process of explaining. So it goes in. So I was in the growth manager, and the growth manager had a function, had a bunch of functions added. Actually, let's yeah. So the growth manager is once something gets added to the plot, and the how it gets added to the plot is already done. Now that I've made the recording better, I could probably just show it. It was in the planting manager. So inside the planting manager, I took the name. I did not take the class thing. So inside here, inside the root node of here, you had a species class. You have an item name, which is what is inside the original add-on. So that's the thing that you see on the screen where it says pick up or interact with dandelion. That's the name that you're going to see. This species was identical to the other species, and now I'm starting to realize it's redundant because I could just use this. So the reason why I put r strip and .trim suffix is because I sometimes, so if you go into the world, the other one will be called 1. This is just seed, this is just 1, this is just 2. And obviously when you make a class, it's in uppercase, not in lowercase. So I haven't done that yet, but I could just change it for the future. That's not a big deal. But so then I add a container, which is just a no, not this one. Hold on. I just rename it, right? And then when I go to the growth manager, once something enters the tree, the reason why is because the growth manager is inside the soil group. That will contain all plots in the world. Because if I'm going to expand the game to make it for Steam, I do want more content. So any soil that has, you can also grow in other plots. It doesn't have to be your plot. I'm going to add guerrilla gardening to the game. So it then does the start growth function. And in the start growth function, I had to put a timeout because it wasn't waiting for the renaming that was happening inside the planting manager. So the planting manager would plant this one called G0, growth stage 0, and it would then rename it, and that wouldn't activate. Eventually in my Roblox code, it got so complex that I made sure the player spawned exactly 7 seconds away from seeing the first plot, because that's how much the code needed to instantiate everything and get ready for everything. But for now, it's just 1 second, and you don't see a second because the planted scene here, the planted scene, is the same as the growth stage 0, so you don't see an issue. So if I go now to the growth manager, right, if it has a growth container, so the growth container is just an empty folder that would have that stage inside, because what we're doing is we're just setting it to invisible and then putting the next one and setting that to visible, and so that you can only see one growth stage at a time, which is a bit more sensical than in Roblox. In Roblox, I just had the server have the fully grown stage, and the client would also do the exact same thing, except they didn't need to do all that. They could just delete and replace, because the collision boxes were in the server anyway, so it doesn't matter. Alright, so original name, blah blah blah, container. So the reason why here return is so that you can just ignore the container. Right. yeah, so I would take that and then I would just run the growth loop. And then let me just close this. The growth loop takes the species and then looks into the dictionary that I've shown you before. And then it checks from the dictionary how much time it needs to grow. Obviously, for now, we don't have planting, and we don't have watering, and we don't have weather. So let's say it rained, or let's say it's a plant that's so resilient that grows anyway, even if you water it or you don't water it. So it would have grown automatically. That would be very, very useful in the case of guerrilla gardening that I'm going to add in the future. So it just creates a timeout with the time that is over here. For now, I've just set to 3 seconds because this is what I wanted to do in my game. But in Roblox, I just set them all to the same 30 seconds. And then I would go through the growth stages, and I hard-coded the growth stages because there's 3 stages and then 10 would show you the grown one. So I just uses this kind of thing. So just go to the plant, go to the species. So it accesses the file that is inside the hierarchy of my game file that I just called species. And it's just, for now, it's just called dandy species. So that's what I'm going to do for each and every one. But the problem is, right, I didn't finish this. Let me just finish this and then we'll go to the problems. So then we have the visual, which just actually accesses the file. Yeah, and then sets that to true, and then removes the other one. Okay. So the problem is, and this is the thing that I hate about Godot. If I go here and I go to this and I click make local, right click and click make local, or just create a new node and reconstruct this scene, but just as something that's not a scene, I will then take that and copy it and paste it into the world. It will create a scene that doesn't work. It will create an object that doesn't work. So it doesn't have the preview, it's unable to be planted, and all of this stuff. And based on the documentation that I've read and I've understood, it's just that the engine doesn't handle making local or copying things. Like, you're supposed to have many scenes, and the whole point of this scene species is that if I ever want to make changes, or if the code is accessing anything, I can just edit everything related to the species in one time, right? Like in Roblox, I just had that replicated storage species, and then I had all the species, each and every folder, and if I wanted to make an edit, I'll make it there, because all the code, every single code that needs to access any part, the seed, the flower, blah blah blah, it would just access the one replicated storage, including the shops. So it's annoying that doesn't do that, but I don't mind. I could just, it's not the worst thing in the world, because as long as I have them here, and then I'll just take that and make a scene with it, then that's fine. That's what I plan to do with the rose tea one. I'm gonna go and I figured out what's wrong with the blender stuff. Do I have time to show the blender stuff? The thing is, it doesn't fit in a video, so it's not like that long. So I'll just explain it really quickly. Let me just open one, and then I'll come back. Okay, so the problem was, right, if I go to any one of these, this is how I exported it from there, and then it creates these collections, and then you have to go and delete all the collections and blah blah blah. So the problem is that they are linked. So if you go here to this object, I'm gonna go a little bit down here, and then you go to relations, you're gonna see that this object is linked to a parent, and then these growth state, they're all linked to each other, even if you remove the collection. So you have to go here and manually remove the relation, and that's the fix for when I click Control J. If I do this and I click Control J. Wait, I already did that. Oh, this one is not joined. So if I do this and click Control J, this didn't do an issue. Control J, it will give me an error. Okay, cool. Control J. I can't recreate the error. But the error looks like this. So here you can see, because I Control J'd too hard, that this happened. And another thing is, when I clicked on Control A, because of the linkage, it didn't apply the rotation. So that's why it's rotated. So that's going to affect when you plant stuff, right? So I'm going to have to go back and do some more Blender changes to this before I could do anything. But anyways, I did some refactoring as well. I deleted some stuff that I thought was not needed. I also found more stuff to delete and just try and combine functions together. I'm trying to just make the code easier. I also worked on making my own documentation for things. So inventory controller is obviously made by the add-on, but I added my own stuff, and I added emit, equipped slot cleared, and equipped slot changed. But then I realized that when equipped slot changed, the signal works, because signals are sometimes they don't work for some reason. I realized I could just use that in the other thing to, like, the reason why I needed it was for the other code, for when you're holding the thing in your hand. I wanted to no longer hold the thing in its hand. So I didn't remove that code yet, so I just put deprecated. And yeah, I didn't put anything proper, but you can link stuff, which is nice. However, if you go to the documentation, it will, on how to make this type of documentation in Godot, it will show you stuff that does not yet work for the version of Godot that I have, because I have an older version than the one that the official Godot documentation is based on. Anyways, I really do need to end the video, because I want to finish stuff first before I go through what I'm doing. Except, I don't know, if I do make videos where I'm just showing what I did in the next few days, it won't be a lot of progress. It won't be like tutorial like the rest of these videos. But I need to do this for my own documentation of I actually did stuff. As you can see, this link works, but this link doesn't, although seed item is a valid name for the class, and it's a unique name across the board. There's one more thing, and when you put a dictionary, you have to go to globals and add it, and it just randomly got removed for some reason. But that's another reason why I don't understand why Godot's being so unstable and being so difficult with me. Anyways, that's all the time I have. I hope you've learned stuff, especially about the Blender stuff. I did not know any of that, so trial and error. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.